Welcome to Bare Exposures, a photographer's rap session. Bare Exposures is a weekly show that covers a variety of photographic topics. I hope to inform and entertain you. Bare Exposures will vary from week to week, so grab your grip and hang on. I'm Frank White, your host, and I am a working photographer. In this very first episode, I'll update you about what Canon is doing with the 6D Mark II. You'll also hear about a woman who was almost eaten by a crocodile while posing with it, and I'll mention the release of Panasonic's GH5. We also have our very first image critique coming up. So, without further ado, let's get started. Now, I'm going to start off talking about a guy who made a 1-second video in New York City every day. And I think this is his third year that he's done it. So he's done it in 14, he did it in 2015, and he just released recently his 2016 version of the video. Now, New York celebrity photographer Norm Glenn, I'm gonna try to pronounce this, I know I'm butchering his name. Jalil takes daily videos to create a project that has a second of video per day. What makes the 365-second video especially compelling is the number of celebrities that Norm films. In the video, you'll find celebrities from Bill Clinton to Meryl Streep to Madonna. And trust me, there were a whole lot more, not to mention some interesting behind-the-scenes photography shoots. You'll find the complete video montage currently on petapixel.com, and I'll include a link in the show notes, so if you want to check that out, then that would be pretty cool. I mentioned in the introduction that there was a woman who was almost eaten by a video. A woman who was almost eaten by a crocodile. I tell you, having a woman who was almost eaten by a video would be interesting. Okay. A French woman was injured in Thailand after she tried to pose for a snapshot next to a large croc. The Bangkok Post reports that 41-year-old Benitula Lussenfleur, and I'm butchering her names, she's French, was walking on a nature trail in Thailand's Khao Yai National Park when she and her husband noticed roughly a 7-foot-long crocodile lurking near a waterfall. With her husband holding the camera, she strolled up next to the crocodile, squatted next to it for a photo to share with her family and friends. As she was standing back up, she tipped to the side and the crocodile attacked, biting her right leg, causing a 10-inch, 2-inch deep gash in her leg. From what I understand, it was up near her knee. So, needless to say, she is recovering. She did spend some time in the hospital. Park officials say that there hadn't been any incidents with crocodiles in the park before, and the woman was attacked because obviously she ignored the signs that says beware of crocodile. Now, I know it's important to get pictures, but come on guys, you know, I know in America we have alligators, and especially down in Florida, and we're always hearing about alligator attacks when people venture into the water because they like to lurk in murky water. Well, suffice it to say that most people know better than to go near a crocodile. As I mentioned, in the introduction portion that I was going to update you about what Canon is doing with the 6D Mark II. So in the rumor mill, and these are just rumors, Canon it's still rumored that the 6D Mark II should be released sometime in the summer of 2017. I can't remember which shows come up in the summer, but probably at some show or right before some show. And the 2016 do have some specifications. Those specs are that the 6D Mark II will have a 25 megapixel sensor. We'll be able to shoot 4K. We'll also have dual SD slots and an articulating screen. Go for it. Now, for what's really exciting is the GH5 has just been announced by Panasonic. Now, needless to say, I'm a Canon shooter. I even make my videos with Canon equipment, but if I was going to buy a video camera, it would be the GH5, which may become a planned purchase depending on how quickly this channel take off. But this is what I can tell you about the GH5. Okay, the GH5 will have a price tag of about $2,000, $1,999 for the body only. And it is expected to hit the shelves in March. The camera is bigger than the GH4, and Panasonic says that's primarily so it could include stuff like the full-size HDMI port that comes on it. I think they call that HDMI a Type A port, A for Apple. So I'm really looking forward to actually seeing that camera. Hopefully I get a chance to review it. But one thing that's interesting about that camera is, in addition to it being weather sealed, you know, dust proof and moisture proof, you know, light rain proof and so forth and so on. This camera is actually freeze proof, so that means that you can make images in the deep Arctic even when it's cold. I mean, wow. I'm out here and it's probably 38 degrees or so. My fingers are numb, I got my toboggan on, and quite frankly, my nose is running. Quite frankly, I'm cold. So I can't imagine trying to make videos in sub-0 degree weather. One thing that's attractive on this camera is that for stills, it will shoot at 9 frames per second while in continuous autofocus mode. Now, the autofocus is, well, Panasonic want to say that once that autofocus grabs you, it won't let go, but it's not Canon's dual pixel. It's not Canon's what is it called? Dual pixel autofocus. Yeah, it's not Canon dual pixel autofocus system in it. It's one of the older autofocusing systems in it. So, you know, that's going to be interesting on how well it can hold focus. The GH5 will have 225 autofocus points as opposed to the GH4's 49 autofocus points. With Canon's 5D Mark IV, you can grab an 8.8 megapixel still screen grab from a video. Well, with this camera, with the GH5, you can grab an 8 megapixel screen grab. The GH5 sports an 18 megapixel sensor and is actually capable of utilizing 6K when making some of the images. The GH5, even though it's actually a mirrorless camera, I think it's actually a hybrid video camera, because for a video camera, it makes excellent, and I do mean excellent, stills with its micro thirds sensor. But it's really a video camera. And one of the reasons I say that is because Panasonic has removed that 30-minute limit, so that, you know, after 30 minutes with my camera, and most DSLR cameras, or all DSLR cameras, after 30 minutes of video, then you have to stop and reset the video to get another 30 minutes. Well, with this camera, you limit it only to what you can store on the video card. And if you store your images or your video to an external recorder, then you probably have no limits at all, provided you can switch out recorders on the fly. But that's beyond the scope of this video. The GH5 really is all about video. It does have that 4K video capability, and it's able to record up to 60 frames per second in 4K. Well, I don't know of any other mirrorless cameras that can make that claim at this time. It's able to record 180 frames per second in 1080p, which is HD, and it does have 2 SD slots as opposed to 1. And so, you know, having the dual SP slots, again, takes it more towards that professional grade camera. Like I said, it is larger than the GH4, 13% larger, and it does record something called 10-bit 4:2:2 video internally. Since I'm not a video guy, I don't really know what that means, but who knows? I'm making these YouTube videos, and it's a labor of love. I have fun doing it, so I might wind up doing more video in the future. But again, if I pick up a video camera, it will be that Panasonic GH4 used or a brand new GH5. So anyway, like I said, I've got my... Now we're going to move on to the image critique section of the show. And I'm already at Flickr, on my Flickr album page. Okay, so in order to find the group that I've set up so that for you to submit your images to, then you will want to search Critiques by Frank White. Okay, and you'll want to go down to search groups. Make sure that you don't search people or search images. Once you get there, then you'll see all Flickr groups. Now, you may not see your groups, because if you haven't joined any groups, then you won't have any groups to show up. But under all Flickr groups, then you'll see Critiques by Frank White, and just click it. And if you haven't joined yet, then of course you will need to join by clicking the join button, and before you can submit any critiques. I mentioned last week when I did the Bare Exposures announcement that I would be collecting images to critique for the first show, and I did have a member submit an image. Thanks to Philip Bennett. I do have an image of a robin. Actually, the photo is named Robin at Tahiti Woods. And without Philip, I wouldn't have anything to critique. So again, thank you, Philip. So let's get started. Now, when you submit your images, I would prefer that you make sure that you have the EXIF data enabled on your camera, because by being able to look at the EXIF data, if there's something that you've done that I or someone else might want to try to emulate, then they can see the settings that you've done, that you've got in your camera, and use that for inspiration. And also it helps me figure out some technical issues that you may have had to deal with when you made your image. For example, in this image, I know that Philip made this image with an EI-70D, which in the United States is sold as a T5i, and I know that this image have been cropped in because birds are really shy, so you can't really get really close, and he's got so much of the bird in the frame taken with a 55 millimeter lens or a zoom lens at 55 millimeters at f6.3. I know that it have been cropped to fill this much of the frame. I also know that his light was fairly low because he's shooting at ISO, and he left his shutter open for a great length of time for birding, which is 1/60th of a second. Generally speaking, when you're shooting birds, you may want to shoot with a faster shutter so as to freeze them in flight, provided they are flying. But this guy's just sitting there, so the relatively low shutter speed worked. Also, he used a flash, and I can tell because number one, it says flash on fired, but even without that, I can see the shadow on the bird's tail. Now, in all honesty, I may not have been able to tell whether or not that was shadow from sunlight, except for the angle. But I'm pretty sure that's the shadow from the flash. So just including that EXIF data, I think we'll all find useful. And when I do the critiques, I intend to give images with the EXIF data a higher priority than I will the images without them. Also mentioned when I do the announcement, when I start getting enough images that I have to pick and choose which ones that I'm going to use, I would like to devise a way to choose random images. So if you got any ideas for doing so, leave them in the comments below. All right, so let's get started with this critique. Now, the first thing that I can tell you is that I like this image. I really do. It's compelling. I see the bird's eyes. I like the colors. I like the saturation. I think the bird is really nicely lit. But I do have some criticisms. Now, when I zoom in on the bird, I see some artifacts that I generally see when an image is over sharpened. So I think, Philip, you may have just went a little heavy on the sharpening. If I were you, I might back off of it just a tad. If you submitted this image to somebody who wants to print it, the sharpening artifacts would show up in the print. And as you can see, anyone who want to blow this image up on their computer can also see the sharpening artifacts. Now, in all fairness, sharpening is not so much of an issue if it's displayed on Facebook or some place that does a lot of compression and does not allow you to look at a larger image of the photo, larger sides of the photo. So just keep that in mind. You do want to make sure that you don't over sharpen when you post process your image. However, However, you do want to go ahead and try to get those eyes sharpened as much as you can. So if you can limit your sharpening to the eyes, then that would be fantastic. And this is a good time for me to say that the feedback and criticisms that I'm giving is just, in my opinion, photography is subjective. So what Philip has submitted is, there's nothing wrong with it. What counts is how you feel about your own photo. However, if you were submitting it to be juried by judges, then you might want to pay a little bit more attention to some of the things that I'm pointing out. Okay, so the only other criticism that I have is that even though, well, I never finished talking about what I really like about this image. I also like that the bird is not centered, that you are using the rule of thirds. You've got the bird's face in the upper third on the left, and that's really important. If you had centered this image, it would not be nearly as interesting as it is now, or it would look more, perhaps more like a snapshot than a portrait of the bird. There are some rules for centering, but those rules does not apply here. Okay, now what I would like to criticize on this image is the fact that the background is busy and distracting. I know it's a wooded area, but the colors on the background are so vivid and bright that it's distracting. It's drawing my image, it's drawing my eye from the image and keeping my eye from resting on the subject, which is the bird. And I keep looking at that background, hoping to find something in there that will pay off my efforts to look. And needless to say, nothing is there. So I'm gonna download this image and pull it in Lightroom and do a little bit with the background just to make it a slightly stronger image. The edits that I'm doing, that I intend to do with it, won't be anything that's going to change the image at all. Okay, so now that I have it in Lightroom and I'm sure that you can see it, I want to go to my develop module, and I am going to get my adjustment brush and I'm going to start painting. But right now, when I paint it, I can't see anything. So what I'm gonna do is move over here and turn my mask overlay on. And now I can see what I painted. That little reddish color is what I'm. Do not adjust your microphone. I have taken control of this show to bring you this special announcement. Actually, I cut into the show just to tell you that the edits that I made in Lightroom did not show up in the video. So I'm going to remake the critique portion of the video and upload it in a separate video. So watch for that coming soon. In the meantime, if anyone can recommend, can tell me how to get OBS to record everything that I do in Lightroom, I would appreciate it, because I have played with it now for 2 days and I can't seem to figure it out. Might be that I need to get some paid software or something different, but if OBS would do it, then I prefer to use it because it streams and I like that feature.
Anyway, I'm gonna return. I am going to return you back to the regular show. So I apologize for not being able to complete the image critique at this time.
I hope you enjoyed that image critique. I hope you really got something out of it. And even though I mentioned where to submit your images for next week's show, let me just say that again. Just go to Flickr.com and do a Flickr search on groups for critiques by Frank White, and it should come up. Now you will have to join in order to post an image, but hopefully guys, it'll be worth it. Hopefully if I choose your image, depending on how many I get, then I can give you some feedback that will help you become a stronger photographer. And like I say, when I do the image critiques, it helped me become a stronger photographer. So now I'm moving to the section that I call whatever, and in this section I talk about whatever. So since I don't have anything prepared, this is the section where I get to wing it. So normally I make videos in parks, I make videos in my backyard, and today I decided to come downtown. I'm in downtown Durham, so that's the skyline that you're seeing behind me. Durham is really a small city. I think it's got a population of around 250,000, so it's really a small city. And the skyline, like most skylines across America, is being dotted with cranes, something I hadn't seen in a very long time. So looks like the city is experiencing some growth. So that's a whatever. If you have anything that you want me to talk about in a whatever, go ahead and leave it in the comment sections below. I'll look at it and maybe address it in next week's or a future episode of Bare Exposures. Also, since this is the very first episode of Bare Exposures, you tell me what you would like to see in Bare Exposures. You tell me what you feel I could do in this show to make it more compelling to you if you don't feel like it's compelling enough now. Anyway, guys, I am going to come to a close. Remember, if you're going to shoot anybody today, shoot them with a Canon or a camera of your choice, and say it with me. Remember, keep shooting no matter what.